David MURATHE is the vice chairperson of Jubilee Party. He joins us in the Situation Room. Mheshimiwa MURATHE, good morning.
Morning, Latif. I'm so sorry. There is a real mess on the expressway.
Hiya, what's happening?
Dear.
Yeah, because guys don't pay prepaid. You have an ETC, electronic,
Yes,
and then guys want to pay on the spot.
yes.
So there's a queue.
So it affects even
It
those
affects actually
who
slower
have-
than the normal.
They don't have a lane for people who have prepaid and
They
for,
do. But what happens, they pile up, blocking even that lane, particularly on the exits.
dear.
But on the highway,
Yes.
you can do 7 minutes from Museum Hill
Yes.
to the airport.
7 minutes.
7.
It's like flying.
It is.
It is.
But Latif,
But you're here.
it's good to see you.
You know, David, we've talked about you being on the show a number of times.
Yes.
Finally, it
that's
has
why-
happened.
Finally.
Welcome to
But
the hot
I've been
seat
very
of the
scared of
Situation
this one, so
Which one?
I've been trying to avoid you.
This one is actually you.
She's so tough
Room. Ndu kumbe ni
on
wewe.
people. I saw her with Kabogo and I'm like, hey, I don't want to do that one.
I really am gentle as a dove.
Anyway, please, good to be here.
Karibu.
And sorry for the delay again.
Apology accepted. Welcome to the hot seat. We are talking about the politics as we see it. I mean, now IEBC has gazetted the voter demographics, the
Right.
total number of voters and the distribution of voters. It's a headline in the nation, in the Standard today. You, of course, are right there in the kitchen of this political campaign from the very beginning. As the vice chair of Jubilee, you've participated in the last, how many elections now? 6?
97 to now. You are
Can you
not
imagine?
born.
Since 97,
Right.
you have been there
Right,
in the campaigns for all those elections.
right.
So looking at you, at this, for you, these numbers must mean something.
Yes, because we do scenarios and we are almost always correct. Almost always.
Apart from
To
202.
the no. 2-2 we were relying on Nyayo because we never believed Nyayo can lose,
Okay.
and we were winning until that Tosha moment. Nobody could believe that Kamodo, Raila, Kalonzo, Saitoti would go and say Kibaki Tosha. Once that happened, we were dead. But we were winning.
So apart from that one,
Yes,
the others you've...
to the point.
Okay. Explain to us.
Because in
numbers.
2007, we agreed that Uhuru should go back home. He inherited the Kibaki infrastructure and backyard because we had just come out of the 2005 referendum where we sided with the north side against the rest of Mount Kenya. The Mount Kenya was yes, as in bananas, and we were in orange. And orange mutated into political formation. And I remember they were saying, Wembe ni ule ule. And Uhuru's idea at that time is that, look, we are being herded into one corner as a community, and it would be the rest of Kenya against Mount Kenya. And true to form, in 2007, it was 41 against 1. And that's history. The rest is history. Forward to 2013, and Uhuru left it for Musalia Mudavadi to deal with the ICC cases. And then there was a lot of pressure, particularly from the sitting politicians, because they wanted to ride on his back to make it. And they forced him back on the ballot. And he had actually left it for Musalia. Musalia ran 400,000 votes. Uhuru ran with Ruto, the peace dividend. We were talking about the warring communities, the people who are next door to each other, the Kikuyu and the Kalenjin. And 2013 was the most peaceful election, even after it went to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court found in favor of our side. There were no demonstrations. There was nobody making noise. I'm actually told they went to Zanzibar and they avoided the inauguration. Fast forward to 2017, our numbers were spot on, 54 to 44. And that is what happened. We came out with 54%. The 2013 was 50 plus 1, which they were saying was by 8,000 votes. When they computed properly, it was 80,000, the 50 plus 1. And remember, 50 plus 1 is 50%
One
plus
vote.
one vote. Your vote. Your vote matters. It could be that one vote that
decides
helps
an
somebody cross over. So in 2017, despite the ruling by the Supreme Court, the numbers were clear. However, there were processes, procedures, the arguments about transmission and all that. Fairly technical, but we were spot on, 54 to 44. And even this time, we know the numbers.
So, David, essentially we are saying that the numbers matter, and that would we go further to say that anybody who is playing in this arena would be a fool not to consider the numbers, whether they're working for you or
We
not?
have actuaries. In fact, somebody like Sakaja was part of our team, cracking those numbers. And we are very, very realistic. We check all the opinion polls and everybody, but Kenya is a very interesting demographic. You know, for example, in Luo Nyanza, it's locked for Raila. When you go to Western, he almost always defeats Musalia in Western, because you have Kakamega with Raila, Busia with Raila, Vihiga with Raila. They split Bungoma. Trans Nzoia with Raila. So if you look at Rift Valley, in Turkana right now, Raila is ahead. If you look at Nakuru, he's ahead. If you look at Masayan Land, he's ahead. Both Samburu, Narok, and Kajiado. If you look at Nairobi, the combination of Uhuru and Raila supporters, it's a long shot for Kenya Kwanza, Kenya Kwisha. You go down Taveta, Raila. Kwale, they have a chance because of Mvoria. Mombasa, locked. Tana River, locked.
Kilifi.
Kilifi, I live in Kilifi actually. I'm in Watamu. And Kingi called me last night. I think he's coming back because the ground is bad.
Whatever makes you say that, David,
No.
based on
Call
the
him.
conversations that you have.
He's around.
So what
Call
did
him to confirm that.
what conversation did you have with him? I mean, what's been happening in Kilifi?
You see, there's what you call the Giriama nationalism. And actually, PA was supposed to say, no. Everybody has their regional party. And in fact, that was the other problem in Mount Kenya, where they were feeling they needed an anchor party. UDA's philosophy was no parties in Mount Kenya. Everybody was supposed to go to UDA. And that's why you're finding Kyunjuri making noise, Kabogo making noise, Moses Kuria. Although Moses, you can't tell. He's like London weather. You've been to London? It's drizzling in the morning.
Drizzling and the sun is shining in the afternoon.
Sun
And then
shining in
it's
the
drizzling an hour
afternoon.
later.
And, you know,
Back to
So-
Kilifi, David. So what's happening in Kilifi? What is this that makes you say that Kilifi is locked?
because when PA signed with Kenya Kwanza, Kingi is the one who signed, but the ground did not move. He has now realized the ground did not move with him. So he's coming back to his people. We have issues which we cannot interrogate here about some of the qualifications of people like Aisha Juma, you know, the one of Kiuno. And we have Mungaro, who is the ODM Azimio candidate. And by the way, I'm also the vice chair of Azimio. So not just Jubilee. Right now, we are in that coalition to go into this election to continue with the agenda of His Excellency and the former Prime Minister of trying to have a face of Kenya into the political space.
Okay. As you walked in, David, we were having a conversation amongst ourselves and trying to understand, well, we're seeing, use of words such as swing counties, swing votes, battleground counties. Do those exist?
Yes. You have safe, you have the middle ground, and you have the hostile. It would be foolhardy to try to go into a county like Western Gishu and put your resources, energy, time, and effort. But what has happened in this election, which is very interesting, Mount Kenya has no candidate. And what that portends is that there's going to be a lot of apathy in Mount Kenya. Now, because they had no stakes, everybody went hunting in Mount Kenya. All right? Now, Mount Kenya is a battleground state or county, the region. The others are defined. The minute Kalonzo joined Azimio, it was locked for Ukambani. Raila had already locked Nyanza. Western is also a battle ground.
The whole of Western or part of Western?
Part of. And actually, like I said earlier, Raila almost always defeats anybody in Western. Kakamega neighbors Kisumu, and there's a lot of intermarriages and they speak the same language. The Busia are actually Luos. All right?
Not entirely true.
I am telling you, they are the lake. All right? Sioport, whatever, Funyula, whatever. That is why Kinawanjala went there from Fort Kenya.
Actually, Mheshimiwa, you have a point when you say that because of the neighboring Luo communities. Over time, people have moved back and forth. If you look around, say, for instance, the Manyala,
Yes.
just the population of Luo speakers, and because of the intermarriage, yes. But the communities in Busia are actually very distinct in that they have their language, their dialect.
You'll be shocked.
But the leaning that they have towards ODM is profound. So to say they're predominantly Luo is actually not true.
By the way, the only other community in Busia is the Iteso.
Yes.
And they are Niloids.
Yes, they are.
They don't even circumcise.
No, they
My sister is married there to Ekirapa. I can give you the demographic of Busia. Apart from the Wako side, the former AG, the rest, Mudia Wari, Funyula, down
the Samia.
Siopo, the Samia,
Yes.
Julia Ojambo, and all that.
Yes.
These are Luos.
And I'm saying
It's only the Iteso are the only in Busia who, and that is why Ojamong was able to become the governor. Because they were able to combine with the ODM vote, the Luo vote, and the Teso vote, which also now moves on to Bungoma. And they have the fights across, the cultures, because the Bukusu are, tough. You have seen their circumcision ceremonies.
CT, you had a question for David.
yes, I was referring to what Mheshimiwa said with regards to all these counties being locked. Yes, historically it is clear that voters in certain parts of the country have shown consistent preference for certain candidates. That's certain. But I was going to talk about an appearance by one former Minister for Interior, one Mr. Kimemia, and the discussion was on Citizen TV, and they were talking about the deep state and his comments about how the deep state can actually assist and how I see Mheshimiwa is smiling. Yes. Now, if I take the view that was expressed by the governor, and I look at the positions he has held in government, very sensitive, over time, I could argue that the man knew what he was talking about, because the dockets he has held are the dockets that actually ensure that we have security and intelligence running smoothly and ensuring things work in the country. So, others have also said that when you hear ministers within this current government talking about statistics and data, we seem to favor the Azimio candidate. The argument has been that this election has already been predetermined by the state. What are your views on this?
There's nothing like a deep state. Okay.
Really?
There was something like deep throat. Was it in Nixon in the US?
Yes.
And I think that was Henry Kissinger. But there's something called the National Security Advisory Committee, where you have all the chiefs of intelligence, NSIS, the army, the interior, and all those guys.
Yes.
And the deputy president, actually, when the president is not around, is the one who chairs the NSAC. It's called NSAC. And I think the secretary is the attorney general because he's the principal advisor to the government. Now, these guys have access to certain information, intelligence-based information. I think the problem this time is when you have some civil servants coming out political. Ministers are actually allowed in our constitution. If you read that section 15, it says a state officer or a public officer is not allowed to dabble in politics, except cabinet secretaries, because they're appointed to propagate a certain agenda, a certain manifesto of the party that appointed them. So when he's out there opening roads or water dams or whatever, he is actually propagating the manifesto of the government of the day. And it is there in the constitution. Ministers are allowed. Civil servants, on the other hand, are not. And that is why you find now during the campaign period, you will not see any PS, you will not see the Andrew Wakahus of this world featuring. But Andrew is in charge of the delivery. And he is a guy with the data of what Jubilee administration has delivered. So as an officer accounting on delivery, he's perfectly entitled. They have access to this information. Remember, in terms of security and all that, there's no way they are not going to get involved in the electoral process.
So accusations have been flung, that the state machinery, again, is being used to push this particular side of the agenda, David. And we cannot run away from the way it looks. Optics play a very vital role in all of this, with which anybody could throw it at your side and say, look, you're using state resource, you're using state personnel,
On the
you are
contrary.
pushing a particular agenda, and it should not be allowed constitutionally and
If I
otherwise.
can tell you how we won the 2013, was to get out of the state machine. That same Kimemi you're talking about were the principal proponents of Musalia presidency to succeed Kibaki. If you want to lose an election, use the state machinery, use the state apparatus. Because these are career civil servants. They're about their jobs. They're about themselves. And they will invest on both sides. Right now, you have a huge percentage of the state machine with William Ruto. He said the other day, he gets intelligence briefs. He said, forget those opinion polls they are giving you. I have mine from the same
source.
system. Uhuru actually got us and told us, I don't want to have anything to do with the system. That was in 2013. You guys, he formed a team. JB Muturi, J. Muturi, Alfie Getonga. And he said, we want to run and we want to win this thing. We're not going to depend on this one. They are betting on who can come. So in most cases,
So
they
they
invest,
put their
they invest
hedges
on both sides. All right? And there's, like I said, there's nothing like deep state. Deep state is an operational state apparatus. It's a state machine which advises the president.
Are there no people within this state machinery who wield certain powers because of the positions that they hold, whether directly or indirectly, and then they're also able to swing influences in certain ways?
They will never influence an election. Chiefs, for example, they are hated on the ground, and that is the administration. If you recruit chiefs to be your campaigners, they can coerce people, all right? But when the chiefs are down, that is the last unit you want to rely on. But in terms of organizing people. And can I tell you why the BBI flopped? Is when the government machine started being the ones collecting the signatures, all right? And they were not supposed to get involved in that. If we had our own, like, party workers, party volunteers, party mobilizers doing those signatures, there was nothing that would have stopped BBI. But the minute you have a PS, the minute you have a chief, the minute you have an officer of state being the one out there promoting that agenda, it goes.
So right now, as we see, like you're saying, we have PSs and CSs who are coming out and speaking, and they appear to be supporting one side, or the perception is that they're supporting one side. That is working against Azimio?
Not quite. You see, the president already has pronounced himself on his preference, right? These guys are taking cue. And by the way, remember, it's your democratic right to choose. The fact that you're a CS or you're a PS does not mean you do not hold a view about who you'd prefer to be your next head of state. And that's why you find the president is not out there campaigning. He's not on rooftops. He's not on a caravan. He's not going out to campaign for Azimio. He's the chair, remember, of the Azimio coalition. Of course, the party leader of Azimio is the presidential candidate, Raila Odinga. Whenever he has an opportunity to pronounce himself, like if he's going to open a road in Taveta or somewhere, and there are people out there, he will tell them. He met the Acorino, I think. Was it last Sunday?
Yes.
And he was there telling them, look, in my view,
This is the way to go.
this is the right guy for the transition to succeed me. Because he has promised to carry on with the agenda.
But Mheshimiwa, when you have now these state officers coming and public officers coming out to openly speak and say, yes, they could be taking the cue from the president, but they are coming out to show favor with one side. Is that working in favor of Azimio? Is that working against Azimio?
I think, like I said before, ministers are allowed by law to do that. State officers, public officers, PSs, they are not allowed to do that. They can express themselves in their own private individual capacities. But what we are building in this country are institutions. There will be people who say certain things about Chebukati team, others, like right now, both sides, and she said it, are very suspicious of what's going on at the IEBC. But if Chebukati can stay firm and focus on the job, supported by the Chilobas, who he actually fired, he was the CEO of IEBC, if they can deliver a free, fair, transparent election. Remember, this election happens actually at the polling station. They are counted at the polling station. Everybody is supposed to have their agents and a tallying center where those agents give them the feedback. What is the issue right now? 1,100 something places which are not covered. I hope you asked Chiloba about that. And even the telcos themselves, they should be able to invest. Why the laptops didn't happen is because of the power issues. Kenya Power tried with off-grid systems. But when you do not have power, and that is why the penetration right now is between 70 to 80% reach. Kenya Rural Electrification, they had a fantastic rollout, including areas where you do transmission lines, what they were calling the railway to nowhere, right? If you can take power to some very remote area in Pokot or Turkana or Samburu, then you can have access to 3G,
To transmission.
4G, and the telcos should invest in some of those places so that you can do that electronic transmission.
But here's the
However,
thing.
I'm told Chebukati has got these gadgets, which are like satellite telephones, to transmit that. But you, the candidates, must have your own people down there who should be able to transmit that result to your tallying center. I can tell you for free, everybody knows everybody else's result before the Bomas National Tallying Center announces. Because we know what they got in Gatanga, in Kegio. We know what they got in Ithanga. They also know. They were counted. See, we were all there.
You have all
What
your
you need
agents there.
is a system that makes sure you have agents and they're alert and they're not compromised. And what is counted is fed into your tallying center. By midnight of that day, everybody knows the numbers.
Which is maybe where the issues then come in, with even with regards to what the questions are being raised by Kenya Kwanza and Azimio to IEBC. So we have 22 million voters. We have an extra 6,000 polling stations this time.
Right.
We have a number 1,000 plus that don't have access to 3G transmission.
Right.
Then you are saying we are not going to have a manual complementary system of voter identification. Then we are also not very sure about this electronic system that you have, whether it is robust enough to go on when it's supposed to go on, go off when it's supposed to go on, and work the way it's supposed to work. All this has been lumped on Chebukati's desk.
Right.
But the supporting agencies are government agencies. The Communications Authority, that is overseeing communication across the country, government. When you talk about Chebukati's ability to procure these things, Parliament, government. How soon did he receive his money? Has he received the money? Has he been able to do this? So there's all these strings that are being pulled by people elsewhere that would hamper Chebukati's job.
To be fair to Chebukati, they actually introduced legislation in Parliament to provide for a backup manual should the KIMS kits fail, and Parliament shut it down. And they insisted it has to be electronic. For the last 5 years, we were hoping they were working on the areas where they fell short in terms of the electronic identification of voters. Now, I think it's a challenge because if you watched the trial, was it called, what are they calling it? When they were trying...
test run last week.
The test run, that's the correct word. It was not very impressive. And we were hoping they would then work on those areas which would make it work. They've had 4-5 years to improve on the KIMS kits, some which are not working, why they didn't work, what needs to be done. Because this electronic voter identification is very important. When you do manual, you can vote 10 times. Because it depends on the clerk. They can agree that you have not voted, so they don't strike out your name. And you can come again, and again, and again.
But how does that happen when
With
you have agents
electronic,
in the room?
once you have put your...
Actually, Eric, you simply need to go to a different station to vote.
I'm telling you,
Yes.
we saw it in our nominations in 2017 for Sonko. He would have a guy voting in 15 different polling stations. But once your biometrics
Yes.
are into this system, you can't vote again.
It locks you out.
Yes,
You know, you can't wash that away, eh?
you can't. The indelible ink,
And even that one, people found ways of washing that one out.
so I think, to be fair to the Chebukati team, and you're right about the resources that are available to them to do some of these things, and also the other teams that should be providing the infrastructure. And even these telcos, you cannot just be investing for profit. You must also have a social responsibility to expand, although even technology now is changing. You know, cloud, and I think His Excellency tried to introduce cloud so that you can actually do this thing without necessarily having those masts, investments, huge investments. Ketraco, transmission lines, it's possible to use that as long as they are following that rollout of the rural electrification. It is possible. You can have 3G, 4G coverage to about 80% of this country, 90% even.
Mheshimiwa, I want us to take a break and say goodbye to the audience on KTN Home who've been following us since the top of the hour, but the conversations continue into the next hour. This is the Situation Room. David MURATHE, Vice Chairperson of Jubilee, also let's start with the bigger one, Vice Chairperson of the Azimio Executive Committee and Vice Chairperson of Jubilee Party, is in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
We are still here with David MURATHE, the Vice Chairperson of Azimio and Jubilee. Before we start our show, let's hear the day's proverb. Siti Muga.
Yes, the proverb from Angola. Don't despise the nut. One day it will be a palm tree.
Don't despise the nut. One day it'll be a palm tree.
Yes.
A time cometh.
There come a time.
There come a time.
Okay.
You'll remember that one, David. Were you in Kasarani on the day?
Yes.
There come a time.
When the interests of the country are bigger
Than the
than
interest
the
of
individual.
Yes. Profound words by the late
And actually,
George
that is
Said.
what is informing this engagement with Jacom, where he has totally different approach. He set aside his own personal and agreed there's so much to play for in terms of peace, stability. And if you look at what's happening around the region, Ethiopia is in turmoil. They're fighting the Oromo, I don't know who. Sudan, South Sudan, DRC, fighting with Rwanda. I mean, Uganda. We have managed to maintain our peace and stability because of the handshake. And it's Raila stepping back, is the president stepping back and saying, hey, this was not the idea at independence. Where did the rain start beating us? Of course, there were people who, along the way, had different ideas. But if the trajectory had not been overcrowded by ambition, where you had your Tom Boyers of this world, who had a very clear idea of where to take this country. Unfortunately, 1969, they assassinated him. You had your JMs, who also were like, you can't have a country of 10 millionaires
and a million.
and 10
million
million poor.
Paupers.
Again, 1975, down the road. So, Oko, I don't know, but is a gentleman. Again, down the... So, I think we're getting to a place where you will not see Kenyan refugees. We host a lot of refugees. We host refugees in Daba. We host refugees in Kakuma. And this young generation, they have no idea. They see those pictures there as far removed of women with children at their back, with whatever little they could take with them,
Crossing.
going into another border, going into another country to seek refuge. The word refugee, they don't connect. It is to seek refuge somewhere else because your country, you can't survive.
Yeah.
There's bullets flying all over. There's people killing each other with the machetes. We had a taste of that in 2007. God forbid, we should never, ever have to go back there. And this trajectory of the peace dividend and why Uhuru ran with Ruto is to guarantee you can't have people killing each other who have been neighbors. All right? The protagonists of 2017, we shake hands, and whenever because you shake hands with your protagonist, your friend, you give high five.
High
But in
fives.
terms of you're making up, you shake hands with the person who you're fighting with.
So when President Uhuru Kenyatta shook hands with Raila in 2008, it was for that. It was, let's calm the tempers down. Let's
2018.
2018. What did I say?
March.
2017, but
2018, yes.
It's the year that comes before 2018.
Yes. In 2018 March, when they shook hands, it was for that reason. It was let's calm things down and
The
move
country I'm actually going back to where Muga was. The country is more important
Than an individual.
than the individual.
Now, at this point, when the president is supporting and openly supporting Raila Odinga's presidential bid, is he doing this as part of looking at ensuring that he creates a lasting peace legacy, or is he doing this to protect his interests? Is he doing this to ensure that he also has a say in the next government? For example, why is he chair of a political party? He's exiting as president. Why does he need to play a part in the political party?
It is the distrust and mistrust in the political class. And Uhuru comes in as a guarantor of, those things they agree. Remember, there have been several MOUs in this country.
Many.
Yeah.
And they are not worth the piece of paper that they are written on. So some of these players have insisted that president must be the guarantor of anything that is put. This is the way we're moving. Remember, in our current dispensation, it's only the deputy president who is anchored in the constitution who cannot be fired. So you can make Kalonzo today the chief minister and fire him tomorrow. You
After
can-
fulfilling your pledge.
Of course. But it's only the deputy president. Otherwise, Uhuru would have fired Ruto a long time ago. But he can't. His hands are tied. Unless he can raise the numbers to impeach. However, Uhuru has only one vote, by the way. He can go out there and say who he prefers. That does not equal to the number of votes from Mount Kenya, for example.
Mheshimiwa, would you allow me to differ with you, please?
Yes?
Okay. You are MP for
Yes.
Gatanga.
Yes.
Okay.
Gataga.
Yes, Gataga.
Yes.
Now, when somebody gets to the point where his people determine
Yes.
that he can lead them,
Yes.
in essence, that person more or less walks with the votes of those people in his pocket. No, it's,
Okay, go on.
yes, because,
Yeah.
and even if they no longer wish to vie for that position, there are people who still support them.
Correct.
Yes, each of them just has one vote, but
Yeah.
a leader carries more than just their vote. That's the point I'm trying to say. That if you, let me rephrase it.
Yeah.
You are an opinion leader, even
Right.
now.
Right.
So there are people who will listen to what David MURATHE has said.
Yes.
And if David MURATHE said this is the way to go, they'll say, okay, David MURATHE has said, this is it. It's within that context that I say, the president, yes, as an individual may have a vote, but Uhuru Kenyatta is not just an individual.
Right.
He's public property. He is the president. He is the government, the way we Kenyans think.
Right.
So if Uhuru goes in a certain direction, he goes with a lot of people other than just himself.
And that is why, and I'm glad you said Gatanga, they voted for me in 1997
Yes.
as an oppositionist.
Yes.
I was in Fort Asili.
Yes.
And then Matiba said he's not running. So we went to SDP. And we won. When we came to support Uhuru in 2002, the same people you are saying were in my pocket.
Yes.
Because I went to support Uhuru as a candidate in Kanu, I lost my seat.
Yes.
You are hearing people telling you they are talking to the ground. All right?
Yes.
So they are listening to the people. And as a leader, if we go by you are supposed to be showing them the way.
The way.
But there comes a time when you have to listen to the
what
mood
way
on the
they
ground.
want to be
And I
taken.
want to be very honest here. Mount Kenya, for example, Ruto had 4.5 years free run. Today, the mountain is changing.
Why?
And the Matha effect, for example. All right? And like we started and we said, there's going to be a lot of apathy in Mount Kenya. My own sisters who are political were like, we won't vote. There's nothing in it for us.
We have no skin in
All
the
right?
game.
The minute Martha came in, they said 4 a.m. I'll be on that queue. I'll be on that queue. I don't know these women. They have something. That thing is not just about Mount Kenya. All right? it's you go to Kwale, you go to Kisumu, the women. Oh, now we have something in it. It's now our turn to. All right. So that worked. That really worked, and even for us, we looked at the landscape. Who can you trust to represent the interests of Mount Kenya now that we have nobody on the ticket? If you have Rigathi here and you have Martha here, it's a no-brainer. Because people also have these insecurities. People feel insecure. What is going to happen to us? And that's why people kill each other to get that top prize of the presidency. And now you're feeling, oh, at least with Martha there, our interests are well taken care of. That is Mount Kenya.
Yeah.
The women also are finding, oh, with one of us there, they can address our issues as but they should come slowly also, because very soon the boy child will be the one who is under
that's
threat.
David, even as you speak about all of these things, the things that we cannot run away from in terms of the promises that are being thrown at Kenyans on a daily basis. Azimio launched the manifesto just a couple of weeks ago. And I mean, it's fantastic in terms of the things that are being put out there. The question, though, remains for a lot of people, and that may also determine some of these numbers that everybody's so actively romancing right now, that could it be that right now, and I'm going to use, a phrase from, this century, could it be that Kenyans are more woke, more than they have ever been, that you cannot throw things at them in the manner of the way promises are coming and then not deliver on them? That there's a likelihood that you will be given a vote by Kenyans today, but then there is a greater likelihood that they will follow up on the same promise should they give you the position. So are these things being said with the realization that Kenyans cannot be hoodwinked anymore? It doesn't matter what side you're on. That everything, when there's a rally, there's a new thing. There are rallies yesterday, there's a new thing that's being said. Manifestos being reinforced, manifestos being waited for tomorrow. But Kenyans are awake and they're listening and they're saying, do not talk to us the manner in which you've spoken to us before. Are you aware of this? Even as all this work is being done, interests here and there, are you aware that Kenyans are not asleep?
Yes. And it's a question of who do you believe? Everybody is promising change. Remember Barack Obama? Change that you can believe in.
Yep.
All right? You're having here a set of people in Kenya Kwanza who have been in government for the last 30 years. Musalia came out of university. He was my college mate, 1 year behind me, into government, into a minister in 1989. Ruto, YK 92. From 1992 to 2022 is 30 years. Powerfully in government. Even as an assistant minister in the OP, he is reputed to have gone around slapping ministers. All right? This is somebody who has been in government. Even in the Mukatenusu government. Even he was supposed to be a deputy prime minister. Out here now trying to promise people stuff. Raila, on the other hand, has never been in government.
Never.
He, the first one of National Accord, he was even actually complaining.
He was in government in the Moi era.
Corporation. All right? When there was that corporation, it was a plywood, which again, you remember the late Michuki, was that we, as KANU, now the Jogo swallowed the tractor and forgot to switch off. So kept on a meeting. But no, going back to her point, which is very important. There's so many clips of Ruto saying, within 6 months, Cameroon Stadium will be done. Within 1 year, we are going to do these dams. Children, the laptop stories and all that. And she's right. Kenyans are woke. And unfortunately, I looked at those numbers again, the numbers you're talking about. The under 35 are actually 40.
48%.
Correct? It's like a 60-40. And look at those election queues. Who do you see on those queues? it is the elderly, women, and men. These young people, if they are the generation you're talking about, who have been the target of the hustler narrative, number one, they don't vote. Let's be fair. And they'll wait until like 5 o'clock and they say, you want my vote? I want something in return. It's unfortunate. But to put these political people to task, because, for example, Uhuru Kenyatta, people should interrogate what he has done against what he promised. I think some of it was overplayed by the deputy president. But to a large extent, and that is why he's so obsessed with his legacy issues, he has tried to deliver. There were some for one reason or another. Because, again, riddled with a lot of corruption. All right?
Which was one of the promises.
No. With the Uhuru administration, I would give E for effort. All right? Maybe a C minus for the courts. Because these same guys use the court system to frustrate the fight against corruption. So you can see the determination. But if you look at the Kenya Kwanza guys, that terminology doesn't feature anywhere. I hope when they do their manifesto, they'll be coming out with a blueprint of how they will
Fight
deal
corruption.
because the biggest problem in this country and with a lot of African countries is corruption.
It is.
And that is why the Martha thing has really excited and energized the campaign, particularly in Mount Kenya. Because people know, my friend, that the reason they are in the situation they are in is because so much money is being pilfered. Let me ask you, Latif. Somebody has been campaigning for the last 4.5 years. Has anybody ever questioned the source of his money?
There are those who've mentioned it. There are those who've questioned it. There are those who've raised issues with it. But
How do you sustain? We know your salary is $1 million a month. You have chicken. How do you sustain a full-blown campaign, the whole country? Of course, sometimes they use the same government vehicles
There's
you're
resources.
talking about and security. But you're having like 5 helicopters registered under your name. You're having all this infrastructure where every time you go into some meeting, even Moses Kuria was saying the other day how they hire crowds for hire. And those people, of course, you pay the buses, you pay the person coming in, and you pay for the
It's a
town
lot of
hall.
money to mobilize
How
for 1 minute.
the hell
meeting.
do you sustain such a program for 4.5 years out of your pocket?
But you
Has
know,
anybody ever interrogated that?
interrogated maybe not, but the question that has arisen is this. What is implied is that whatever is being used, the resources were gained in a manner that could be referred to as nefarious. But then the question is, we have state organs that deal with such matters. Have they raised those issues? Have they asked those questions? Because as citizens, you can raise the question, but and then after that, then what? We have state agencies whose task is specific. There are people who look at lifestyles. There are
Right.
people who determine sources of income. There are people who determine all these things. Have they raised them? The answer is no, they haven't. So, if that is the mandate that they have and they haven't raised it,
Yeah.
and yet we see them being raised for other individuals, people who work for KRA, people who work for Ketraco, people who work for other state agents, people who work for the Lands Department, we see them being raised. If indeed there were issues that is claimed, you see, if you look at the discussion from the Azimio front,
Right.
and you look at the discussion from the Kenya Kwanza front,
Kenya Kwisha.
Kenya Kwanza front,
Okay.
they have put forward an empowerment narrative with the deputy president being at the forefront saying he grew up poor and he wants to make it easier for people to be able to better their lives by acquiring and being able to do things for themselves, okay? Now, the Azimio side is saying the manner in which this particular gentleman has gone about acquiring his wealth is a little suspicious.
Dubious.
Now, we feel if this is what we see here, if this man was given power surely do the maths yourself. But state organs who are mandated with the task of bringing these things out to light and questioning them and querying them, have they done their job?
That is correct. You remember there was something called a lifestyle audit, where they were all supposed to, as you come in, let us know what you have, so that by the time you're coming out, let's see and how you acquired it. I saw Parliament last 2 weeks ago. The law they actually passed actually watered down that expectation and that requirement
Provision for
from the public.
Yes, essentially,
Right?
not to make the details of said
Public.
audit public.
Yes. All right. But even having said that, KRA can do an comprehensive audit on you. It's actually called an in-depth. You see all those things mushrooming around Kasarani, Roysambu, TRM, whatever. They are all owned by KRA officers. People who are supposed to be collecting VAT. People who are supposed to be... Let me tell you, it's a fact. And by the way, you have raised
So
a
they're not auditing themselves.
No. You look. We already said Uhuru will never leave this thing to a thief. We never said who. Correct? We never said who.
Who the thief is.
But the people themselves saying, you are calling us a thief. You know? We never said.
So why the failure by the state agencies to do their job?
It's the frustration because corruption is seeping all the way down. And that's why I said E for effort. Because then you have the DPP, you have the DCI fighting. Because the DCI is investigating, but he cannot take you to court. So it comes to the Director of Public Prosecutions. The law says only he can. And you take him the fine and say, take it back.
Case.
All right? It goes to court. And then the courts. Some of the cases against some of the people who are in the race have been pushed to September. All right? So they are coming after
The election.
August 9. If, God forbid, that person is the deputy president, your guess is as good as mine.
So the question
How will
again-
you deal with that case, which has now been pushed post the election, and now he's sitting? And you know, this presidency is a pair, right? In fact, to a large extent, it's like there's some kind of immunity, and that people are waiting for some of them to get out of office. And now, when they are Raila, I know the DCI has a few files.
to open. The question before we take a break. You have been the vice chair of Jubilee,
Yeah.
the party. You've been influential in the Jubilee coalition of 2013 to 2017. So when we say E for effort, you're basically saying that you failed.
Yes. We have said
But why is it? What is it that made you fail? Let me give you the example, for example. The issue of the DPP and DCI. So from where we sit, we see a president who is frustrated and is feeling like these officers are not working. The president uses his power of influence to actually get the existing DCI to leave office, the existing DPP to leave office before the end of their tenures, and he puts in new people. Okay?
Right.
And he brings in an EACC person and says, start working. When they start fighting, why can't the president use the same influence that he has to put them together and tell them, look, this is how I want you to work?
I'm sure
Deliver.
he has tried to do that. But to a large extent, there are so many factors at play, all right? Interests at play. And you have to balance. As a head of state, you have to balance a lot of issues. He was there crying about how, is it 2 billion
Yep.
is lost every day?
Every day.
So Kenyans are like, so you are crying. What do you want us to do? That's what Muga, you are saying. Eh? If the president himself can seem helpless, what do you want me to do? What about the man on the street? And they're looking up to him to do something. That's what you're asking.
Yeah.
And it's like, has he failed? He has succeeded into a lot of things. I think the political will is there. But this machine, one day they gave him those budget errors in Treasury. And I went to him and I said, Your Excellency, you know, these things are deliberate to make you look bad. That time he was not president, he was the Minister for Finance.
Yep.
Why don't we sack these guys? And he's like, listen, every finance minister who has come here, whenever there has been an issue, it is the minister who goes. But the same fellows who made those
Are still there.
they stay. So you can, in hindsight, look at some of the things that make it very difficult. When Kibaki came in, people were queuing to pay tax at Times Tower. When Kibaki came in, there was citizen arrest. Any cop on the road trying to take a bribe. The citizens themselves. All right? We had now got into a situation of impunity where we could see policemen being beaten by touts. You saw that. So that when we say this country needs a benevolent dictator, when we say we need order, law and order and discipline, I think that is what has been lacking. Because when the taxpayer realizes that my tax dollars are doing something for me, they'll be happy to pay tax. But when they realize these tax dollars are going into people's pockets, they will now start looking for ways to avoid paying tax.
Let's take a break. 27 minutes to 10. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. The Situation Room on SpiceFM. David MURATHE is the vice chair of... You want to say goodbye? You have to go to the council meeting.
You know, Latif, I like your show and I like the terrorist here. I want to come back. Let's engage, but I had a 10 o'clock because she had said 8 to 9.
Yes.
And we have to do like party lists before Saturday.
Yes.
Which is tomorrow. In the areas we are trying to compromise and tell guys, look, if we in competition, we are creating room for UDA or Kenya Kwanza to snip. So there will be areas we'll be asking guys step down for so and so.
Essentially, you're doing housekeeping.
Oh, yes. And I think Kenyans should know one thing, that we think we are on the right trajectory. We think we're on the right track. Kenya has now become an oasis of peace. The president wants to leave behind a united country. So he reached out to Ruto, shook hands. He has reached out to Raila, shaken hands. And I can guarantee you this is going to be the most powerful election in a while, in a long time. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, David.
And I look forward. Let's come again and closer to the time. And probably we will also look at it after August 9.
Of course we ought to.
65 to 35.
That's what is that what your numbers are showing you?
Yes.
65
we work
to 35.
65 Azimio, 35 Kenya Kwanza.
First round.
Round 1. It will be so decisive.
You know, that is assuming that Wajakoya and Wahiga don't have even a single percentage point.
There will be the 35.
So combined...
The 65 is Azimio. The other side is 35.
Okay. We'll see. We'll hold you to your word. Thank you very much for joining us.